Good evening and welcome to the Hawaii Theater Center. I'm Dave Moss, the Executive Director of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra. Thank you for joining us here on Tuesday night for yet another Tuning Up. We are here tonight with some very special guests. Iggy, can you introduce for us?
Yes, aloha everyone. Nice to see you. We are very honored to welcome Rachel Saul and Jordan Schifino. Now, it is not our intention to feature all the married couples of the orchestra.
Purely coincidental.
Last week we had Claire and Mark Button. I would say that I said Rachel Saul, but it's actually Rachel Saul
Schifino. Eventually, I'm going to slowly incorporate it.
Schifino, not Schifino.
Technically.
And where is that name coming from?
It's Italian.
It's Italian, of course.
So.
But it's funny you mentioned that
Yes.
because when I first met him, it was Schifino. And for all of his friends, it was Schifino. And then one day, Jordan decided, well, you don't say scherzo. You say scherzo.
It's an easy way to kind of tell people.
And I appreciate that.
Musically
Authenticity.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us. Rachel, you're in the violin section, so one of my dear colleagues.
Oh, my fearless leader.
And Jordan, you are in the percussion section.
All the way farthest from you. Unbelievable. Wish I was closer. Now we are.
We are very close today.
Not too close.
Did you come to, well, you know, I actually talk to Rachel sometimes, but I hardly talk to you, Jordan. Maybe it's this distance thing, maybe, I don't know.
Just concise words is fine, right?
So tell us, we have about an hour today to discover everything about the two of you. Did you come to Hawaii together?
So I came here in 2009, and it was definitely a strange year with the symphony. However, at this time, I was much younger, and there was an opportunity to come and sub, and that's when I got to meet everyone in the orchestra, which was fantastic. And even though the times were strange, it was a wonderful time to meet everyone. Everyone was very welcoming, and the in-between time before the Hawaii Symphony rebooted was when Rachel and I came back together, and it's interesting how, gosh, 8 years or so has flown by since our first season with the Hawaii Symphony. That's the short version, I guess you could say, but I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that.
Were you both in the same place before you came here?
We were briefly in Boston together, and perhaps if you want to speak a little bit about the Boston connection.
Well, before Boston, we did meet in Europe. We spent, the first summer we met was in Graz, Austria at the American Institute for Musical Studies Festival Orchestra program. It's a phenomenal program. We know many musicians over all the years that have done it as well. So it's really special. We met there and we went our separate ways after the festival ended. I was studying in Boston at graduate school. He was studying in Cleveland at graduate school, though you had already been in Hawaii before that. So it was this thing that when both of our schooling ended, Jordan had already been moving out here to Hawaii, and I decided to perhaps join because I thought to myself, well, I could stay in Boston and try the 6 hours of long distance, or I could try to move to Hawaii and submit my resume, submit my recording, see if I can start out as a sub, which I did, and then years later joined the orchestra through the audition process behind the screen. So it's a miracle in a way that you have a married couple in the same orchestra, because it takes a lot of work to get to that point.
I know, I remember the audition process. You played beautifully, and it was great to finally have you on a tenure basis. Dave, any experience of European trips as a viola player yourself?
A little bit, yeah. I spent quite a bit of time playing in Europe on a number of occasions, and you know, as you did as a violinist, much of your career there before coming to the States. And I think one question I have is the American program at Graz. Was it a bunch of American players that were all in the orchestra there for the summer, or were you exposed? And what's that like? You know, Iggy has in previous weeks talked about life in European orchestras, how it's a little bit different than American orchestras, and were you exposed to some of that in the program there?
Absolutely. Major exposure, I would say. It was neat because many of us were American, but then you'd get someone from Graz, a viola player, and he was also American but had already been living in Graz for about 10 years. So he had this experience of living and working in Europe. And then there were other substitutes that would come in that were Austrian, you know, born and raised. And we learned so much. We went for 3 summers in a row, and we traveled at every opportunity we could. So we went to France, we went to Italy, we went to Croatia, we went to Barcelona, we went to, what am I missing? Help me out.
Well, it's amazing when you're in Graz how proximate everything is, and just
Prague.
the opportunity for, you know, exposing yourself to more art and music is just limitless. So
Exactly.
you kind of tell yourself to take advantage of it as much as possible.
Yes.
Let me, can you educate me? I know more or less where Salzburg is.
Yeah.
I know more or less where Vienna is, but Innsbruck maybe. Where's Graz?
Graz is 2 hours directly south of Vienna. So like the skinny part is Salzburg, and Innsbruck comes in, and then you get Vienna, and then Graz is like right below it, just like about 2 hours on the train.
Mountainous region?
Yes.
Yes, pretty close to Italy.
Now, you mentioned how when you're in Graz, you can go everywhere in Europe and it's pretty close. But I remember a few years ago, you were here in Hawaii, and Rachel told me that you two were going to France.
This is true. A very dear friend of mine, a violinist, who I believe there was a short meeting between you two not too long ago. He himself was getting married, and you can't pass down an invitation from one of your best friends to go to France and celebrate, right?
That's right, yes. Well, although I have to confess that when my sister got married years and years ago, I had just started here, and I don't know, somehow things got mixed up and I was afraid to leave my job for too long. So I ended up staying here and fulfilling my obligations. But
You needed Zoom.
Well,
You should have zoomed in.
that was a while ago. I don't think they had those
Pre-Zoom.
applications yet.
No,
So
And
Sure.
it speaks to Iggy's dedication to the Hawaii Symphony.
That's
I mean, I think that's
incredible.
really what it says here, week after week, year after year, really being dedicated to our colleagues and to the community here. And speaking of which, we'd love to involve you in the conversations this evening, and you can do so by texting the number on your screen, 808-528-0506. Questions, comments. We've already had someone write in from Washington, D.C. that they're joining us again, so welcome.
Awesome.
It's very late at night there. Thank you for staying up for this, and come visit us
right.
on Thursday. You can now visit Hawaii with a negative COVID test.
that's right,
A
Thursday,
very-
October 15th.
October 15th, 2 days
Right.
from today. Curious how our world will change a little bit. You know, it's having lived here now for almost 8 months, no one has been able to come visit. And I'm curious to see if any of my family or friends will decide to come to Hawaii. Here.
Did you
So-
notice how the streets, the highways are getting a little busier these days, or
Little
was it
bit.
just my imagination?
It seemed like it. More stores opened. I drove through Waikiki the other day, and it seemed like people were preparing to have visitors back. And, you know, I think possibly a good thing for our community. I think possibly a good thing for us here at the Symphony that we're seeing a way out of this, a light at the end of the tunnel. And although as our guest last week, Mark Butin, has said to me, make sure that's not a train coming at you at the other end of the tunnel. So, you know, I think it's going to be an interesting week for us, and exciting that there's something to look forward to. More performances from the HSO in October, November, and December that are a guarantee. We're doing those, and we're finding more opportunities to actually get outside the concert hall here. As much as we love the space at the Hawaii Theater Center, we're going to do some pop-up concerts in the coming months and get some of the musicians back together outside where we're a little bit safer, especially for the winds. Not something you have to worry too much about. But speaking of which, I'm going to have a repertoire question. I think you have our quiz question for the evening.
Yes.
And that would be thanks to our sponsors at Kaka'ako Wines, who have been wonderfully supportive of tuning up. And this evening, we are drinking a 2016 Leeuwin Estate Syrah, I believe it is, Australian Syrah. And a bottle of this can be yours. And truth be told, we have two quiz winners with us tonight as guests. They have known some of the previous answers and have benefited from this. So the bottles actually do come, right? They get delivered to you.
It's true.
Okay.
It's like magic. They show up. Thank you, Kaka'ako Wine.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
Have you consumed those bottles yet, or
Only
are you
one.
saving them?
Only one. After Chaos to Calm, I said, I would love to have the Kaka'ako Wine after this beautiful performance. March 1st to, October, we needed to celebrate.
It's a good time for it.
Well, the quiz question tonight, you can text your answer to the number on your screen, and the first correct response will be sending a bottle of wine your way.
So we were thinking, since I'm a percussionist and we have two violinists here, of course, trying to think of some question that would incorporate both of these elements. And so after some thoughts, the question that we'd like to pose to you is, which piece of music has the Hawaii Symphony performed where the scoring is just percussion and strings? And I can only think of one, actually, one instance. So I think there should only be one answer here.
It's something that has been performed here?
Something that has been performed in the last, I think, 3 years, relatively recently.
I think actually more than once, I think. Yeah.
Yes, you might even,
Perhaps the first time before your time.
perhaps. Yeah, that's right, because he was mentioning, I should probably not give anything away. We'll leave it at that for now.
No hints.
Yeah.
No hints.
So we've had a lot of guests, and we asked them about their background, and many times their families were not musicians. The parents were not musicians. But since we have the two of you here tonight, I thought maybe it'd be nice to actually know more about your background and how you found the love of your instruments. Perhaps, Rachel, we'll start with you. Please start from the beginning.
Excellent. My father is a musician. He is a phenomenal pianist, composer. He started his love of music probably at age 3 or younger, who knows. Always wanting to listen to the records and consume scores. He lived in Pittsburgh, taken to the Carnegie Mellon Library, constantly just poring over all the scores of the day, not just the classics from Beethoven and such, but new scores too. So he went to Interlochen Arts Academy and studied with Nadia Boulanger in Paris, and phenomenal musician. So I feel very lucky that I had that as an influence growing up. I started on piano and I did not take to it. I could play a couple songs at age 3 and 4, and then I said, I want a violin, because my older sister Sarah started playing violin in school and I wanted to do everything she did, so I started violin because of that. And she ended up quitting, and I didn't want to quit. I just loved
Did you
it.
say where you were living when you were young?
Oh, sorry, I'm from Tucson, Arizona, which is, again, 2 hours south of the capital, just like Graz. I always make that comparison. Yeah, it's a cool spot. The University of Arizona is there. I always say it's a blue dot in a red state. Not to talk politics, but that's what it is. It's a great artsy place to grow up. So, yeah, that's how I started. How about you, Jordan?
So similarly, one of my parents is a musician. My mother is a piano teacher.
Piano teacher.
And
where was that?
this is in Rochester, New York. And I was very, very fortunate for those early days of piano studies, so that the basic skills of music are rooted early. It's very hard, not that it's impossible, but to start these types of skills later in life. And piano was a wonderful foundation for me. And in fact, during all of this COVID madness, I've actually been playing more piano at home. It's been a wonderful way to just kind of relax and to think and to create still.
And we've been playing together, and it's
Right.
been wonderful, just like you and your wife get to. It's nice, right? We don't get to play with other colleagues as much now, but we can play with each other.
Yeah.
It's good.
I think I was roughly in 4th grade when I was very interested in percussion and rhythm and something that was a little bit more energetic, I guess you could say. Not that, piano playing is not.
Were you a
but,
restless kid, or?
yeah, had a lot of energy. Still do. But very lucky with where I grew up and the relationship with Eastman School of Music and my teachers there growing up, who, I think of every day still, even more. It's amazing. You think about those teachers you had as a kid, and it's wonderful to always go back to those messages, and you find yourself saying the very same things they were taught to you when you're teaching. It's almost automatic. So it was really this duality, percussion and piano, somewhat of the same family, somewhat not. And I kept it all the way through high school, and actually even when I went to conservatory, I took a year of private piano lessons, but it was way over my head. It was, that was kind of like, okay, let's just concentrate on one thing here.
Except for one thing is like 50 instruments in the percussion world.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Just 50?
There's
Just about 50.
So I went to school at the Cleveland Institute of Music, and I think amongst musicians, it's really known for its string department. And I really think they modeled the whole professionalism of the school. They kind of set the bar. And the percussion department, obviously brass and winds, we were lucky to shadow the Cleveland Orchestra. And that relationship still to this day has, meant the world to me. And just, what it is to be a professional musician. And carrying some of those elements here. And so, yeah, really those elements of Eastman and Cleveland Institute of Music, and, those are really tight bonds for me, musically speaking.
Now, I believe you got married here in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Don't quite remember. I believe, I know that I heard a piece that your dad wrote, and I'm not sure if it was pertaining to your wedding or if I heard it in a separate occasions, but perhaps you could refresh my mind. But I know there was because I was one of the receptions you had, and I thought there was a very strong connection between the two of you, but also with the music, with your siblings, with your father. I think, what did it feel like to grow up in a musical family?
Such good questions. I think there are two things you're thinking of, and that is so kind of you to remember. My sister that I didn't mention, my youngest sister, plays viola at a very high level. She went to Champaign-Urbana for her undergrad, and she still plays viola professionally. And she and my dad performed for us at our wedding, and he wrote a song, and it was really sweet. And so that was that. And then he also wrote a composition for marimba and violin that we performed here at the University of Hawaii a long time ago, 2013. It needs to be re-performed, so we need to dust that off and learn it again. So that is what you're remembering. And as far as the bonds of the music, you are absolutely right. That is so precious to have as a couple, as a family, as both of our families value it tremendously. And we're really lucky because, music is our passion. We have other passions, of course, but this is the thing that we just can't get enough of. And we are so into it that it's driven us to still be here, even despite all of the challenges that we face.
We have a couple of questions that I want to get to because they're relating to some of the conversations we're having now. And one of those questions was actually your father's name, and if, as a composer, has the HSO played any of his compositions, or yourself in recital? And I think you just answered that. So, sounds like maybe something we can add to the repertoire.
Oh, you're amazing. There is a string piece that I've been meaning to bring to your attention. It's called Fantasia. So we'll get up the score for that. It's in 7/4, some of the movements. So it's
Absolutely
kind of modern and fun.
Really
his
love
name is
sevens.
Louis Saul. Yeah, I don't even know if he's watching because it's pretty late in Arizona. But if you are, hi,
He
Dad.
might be. Hey, Lou.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Sarah.
We have another question, or actually, we're supposed to ask about the famous Schifino peppers.
Oh,
Wow,
yes.
that is a great question.
Yeah?
I think
It
I
is.
know of a couple people who might have asked that.
A couple,
Okay, so real quick, the skeef peppers.
Yes.
And if you know about them, you know. And basically, our neighbors growing up were very good friends with ours. And we got to know them when they moved over from Syracuse, which is just an hour from Rochester or so. And they had a pepper connection in Syracuse. And we started pickling peppers, as long as I can remember, our whole lives. That's what we would do it every Labor Day. And my grandfather, I worked in his restaurant my whole life growing up. And so we would always go down to the restaurant kitchen and just, make it ours for a little bit, get the whole family in. And so we actually got a couple of the jars in the mail not too long ago. They're gone.
They're gone. We ate them
They're
all
gone.
with our friends.
Yeah, we
They're
shared
really
some
good.
of them. So, right. Good
They're
question.
super spicy, so you
Spicy.
have to like spice.
Okay.
But they're really good.
Yeah, they're very good. They should be on this table next time.
Next time.
Make a nice addition.
We have a question from Joanne. What is your favorite piece that you have performed together with the HSO?
Joanne Falletta.
Not Joanne Falletta.
Oh.
Ooh, that would have been a nice call-in.
Like, wow, she's awake.
Good question.
Favorite piece together.
I have to think about that for a moment.
Boy, there's been 8 years of repertoire to go through
right.
quickly.
Well, you don't want to give away what could possibly be the quiz answer.
True.
That is true. That really would be one of them. So we will put that one to the
Okay.
side. I might just jump in there and actually go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to say that a lot of the pops programs, especially some of the stuff with the Cat and Goop, have been super fun.
Definitely.
And one of the great things that we do with the Hawaii Symphony, we do so many different types of concerts, especially as we've been progressing along, just diversifying.
Yes.
So not just our classics, but especially the movies. But I really personally, and I know we talked about the arrangements and how much we enjoy them and make
Absolutely.
the orchestra sound great.
Oh yeah, Cat and Goop is a genius when it comes to orchestral arrangements of popular jazz music. I also thought that one of the most moving projects was Aaron Mahi's Kumulipu? I don't want to get it.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, the creation myth, the Hawaiian creation myth, that was a really special project.
That's wonderful.
And we ended up asking Aaron Mahi to be our officiant at our wedding because we were so moved by his connection to the Aina, connection to the people, native Hawaiian, so knowledgeable, so spiritual. So we met him here through the HSO and he ended up marrying us.
Yeah, we grabbed him after we had a couple of reading rehearsals where we were going through our old library of all the Hawaiian music that we have. And after, I think, one of the rehearsals, I kind of tapped him on the shoulder and we talked for a little bit. And he's, one of the nicest people in the world.
Absolutely.
That was a great point.
I'm trying to think if there's any other times in history a conductor has been asked to marry two people before.
And he used to be in the Hawaii Symphony. So
Right,
he's a
yeah.
bass player
He's a bass
and
player.
Absolutely, yeah.
such a versatile, he's a pastor and
Yeah.
I mean, he's just great.
Yeah, he's a beautiful human.
Another question, and this actually comes from someone whose father was with the early Honolulu Symphony from 1928 to 1968. Will there be any music that will highlight the percussion and timpani coming up here? And we've gone through many iterations of programming, as most of our audience knows here.
Yeah. There's been many things talked about, and I don't want to spoil anything, but definitely we have a handful of options that we're kind of going in between, and it might be a good time to talk.
The timpani.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a really special opportunity for the orchestra through a relationship we have with Zach Morita, who is the band director at New Valley Middle School. And I got to know Zach in 2012. He actually reached out to myself and a former colleague in the section about helping join what is now the Hawaii Youth Percussion Ensemble. And over the years, Zach is one of the most hardworking educators I've ever met, period, in my life. And his devotion to music and towards the children here in Hawaii is off the charts, and he's an incredible role model. So a few years ago, at the end of 2018, Zachary was the recipient of the Farmers Insurance grants, which was $100,000, which was a huge moment for Zach, for percussion in general in Hawaii. And through Zach, he has used the funds in a handful of different ways, and a portion were put towards restoring and buying new instruments. And one of the new instruments is a new set of timpani, which for us in this section and as an orchestra is a very, very important instrument to have up to date, if you will. And so we are incredibly lucky that we are getting a brand new set of timpani. So a special thanks to Zach Morita for everything that you've done over the years. You've always helped us with borrowing instruments, and we are very appreciative. And we are absolutely going to showcase once the instruments are here, choosing the right repertoire. So some good excitement and some good things on the way for sure.
Favorite timpani concerto?
Well, when I was a student, it's kind of like a standard to study the Kraft concerto.
Okay.
There's a lot of them out there, and some of them get a little bit somewhat similar, I guess you could say, in terms of style. But I kind of, there's something about the Kraft concerto. It's kind of one of the earlier concerti, I think, for timpani that was showcased and maybe played in orchestras. But I always enjoyed that one as a student, surely.
We don't always think of the percussion as being a solo instrument,
right?
Per se.
Yeah, it's obviously we're in the back. We try to be heard when we can. But we, let's see here. We had a percussion concerto.
Jennifer Higdon, right?
Yeah, it was the Higdon.
Colin Curie, I believe.
And that was an opportunity where actually Zach Morita helped with some instruments as well, because it required a lot of instruments, as you might expect. And Iggy, you might remember, the whole front was loaded with percussion. I'm not sure how that made you feel. Hope it was okay.
Made us feel great. We think of a percussionist as someone who plays timpani and all the percussion instruments, but there's actually quite a bit of difference. Not all timpani or percussion players, I mean, maybe they can, but they're very specialized.
Yeah, right.
Can you tell us a little bit about timpani and all those percussion? Because I don't think I can name all the percussion instruments.
Yeah, it's true. So certainly you will have individuals who might be the timpanist or the principal percussionist, but really, especially today, everyone plays everything. There's surely some variants, but something I think about often is our field, percussion, compared to most of the other instruments, but certainly violin. Our instrument and how it's being used, how it's being written for, it's being developed now. And I think let's say 50 years ago, roughly speaking, maybe there would be a little bit more specialization, but I just feel because the demands for what's being written for, and I just think we all kind of it's really a good idea to know how to play as much as you can.
Because
obviously,
instruments keep evolving.
Yeah, of course. The nice thing is, just from a technique standpoint, so much is transferable. There's obviously some additional items that you need to touch up upon, but maybe a similar kind of fiddling versus, how we would play in the orchestra. Different styles, but you accumulate them your whole life. And it's also through the job, for example, I think a lot of the Masterworks programs, we could not have a lot to do, or it can be crazy. It can be super busy. So really, it's the POPs programs. when these kind of little, you have to be really creative.
Tell
And-
us, sorry, apology. When we play a violin piece, we have one part and we all do the same part, but you have different assignments, because I know sometimes your section gets stressed out when you get the percussion music, because you need to assign different parts to different players.
Right.
It works a little bit slightly different. Can you tell us a little bit?
Right. It is a little bit different, and I think for the repertoire that is very standard. We have an idea. We have a roadmap, even if we don't necessarily know the specific assignments. We're all trained and we understand kind of what to expect. I think going back to the pops element that I was talking about, that's when things indeed can get a little stressful, mostly because of the timing. It's you get the music not as soon as you might like, and well, and I say that in a serious. This is how it is, and we know what the standard rep is, but we didn't.
Like Harry Potter.
Right.
Harry Potter gets you guys in the weeds. You have a lot to do.
Yeah, the movie scores they're so much fun, and I definitely miss those concert experiences and the rehearsals. They're very creative, and they allow you to try more things, and that's wonderful. So it kind of depends. I guess you could
Relating
say.
it to Graz, I have a small story. This was our second summer in Graz, so we were already together. And the other percussionist is now in the Detroit Symphony, a very good friend named Andres. And Jordan and Andres played La Valse. Was that correct, La Valse? Just the two of them. But how many should there have been?
7.
7. 7 percussionists. The two of them covered all of the material in 7 humans, 2 humans. I don't know how you did it. It was amazing.
Well, festival,
What kind of instruments were there in the percussion in La Valse?
A pretty standard setup. There are.
Tell us.
we don't know.
So when I say standard, of course, concert bass drum and snare drum, bells, timpani, suspended cymbal, crash cymbal. I believe in La Valse there's one crotale note, which is don't want to miss that one. You know where that one is though. It's a very special, beautiful moment. I think that's actually why we could put it together. Some are just impossible logistically. So we should play La Valse.
Yeah, we should.
We should
We have
definitely.
not played it.
Dave,
Yeah.
program it.
Now,
Talk to the Concertmaster. We actually had a question that bounces off this, and I apologize. We're staying in the percussion realm for
I love it.
a second here.
I love it.
Someone has asked a question about kind of what you were referring to. You're tossed into having to play containers full of water.
Yeah.
All sorts of things that can become percussion instruments. It's I have the vision of me being 2 years old and banging on the pots and pans on the kitchen floor. You're able to do all those things. You talked about those transferable skills. How do you prepare, when you get a contemporary score and it's an instrument that you have to create or you've never heard of or you have to source. What is that process like?
it's best, I think, if you've gone through it a few times, you go slowly through it. It's so easy to make mistakes when you're learning contemporary music for the first time. And you do need to go slowly and be very careful. And through that process, you'll probably have to look up, and especially when we're here in Hawaii, you can think of many times just where do we find this instrument? What are we going to do? Is it something we have to rent way ahead of time, which we've done, of course. But there's times when you use your resources here in the island and you meet great people along the way. So through the contemporary music, though, I think a lot of the percussion playing is, you look at something and you might, is that possible? Can we really do that? And I remember a friend of mine in school would always bring this point to my attention that that's exactly where the idea of extended technique comes from. And when you look at contemporary music, everything's possible. And I think composers know that, which is not good. It can make things a little bit stressful, but really it does expand what you think you can do. And oftentimes we think we can't do something, and we actually can. And Many times I've gone through that process with contemporary music. It's a great learning experience, and it's fun after you go through it.
Great. A couple more questions here. Or did you have something? No.
Please, let's have questions.
more questions. So the La Valse, we were talking about Ravel's, correct?
Yes.
Yes. That was a question. That wasn't for me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Ravel.
Ravel.
Let's see. We're getting a lot of questions, so excuse me while I look through what.
yeah.
Well, while Dave
Yes.
is looking at the questions, what I noticed, I sat through a few days of auditions, percussion, a few years ago. And what I was amazed at is the skill that it requires to be a great percussion player, because I was sitting behind the screen, and sometimes you have excerpts that require, crash cymbals and suspended cymbals. And man, I mean, if you're not really good, it really does sound like you're a chef cooking with pots and pans. So I was very so in the
Wow.
kitchen.
Nice.
That's really what it felt like. And then you had someone skilled before or after, and you really could feel the difference. And I don't think people realize, oh, you play triangle and bing. No, it takes quite a bit of skill that people don't always, that people sometimes take for granted.
Right. Yeah, it's
Definitely.
easy to, I think the triangles had a lot of jokes over the years, easy to. But I think exactly what you're getting at is just your overall sense of touch, which, it could be anything, right? It could be this wine glass, it could be,
I was literally thinking Jordan could make all this percussion right here. You guys would love it. We
Yeah,
should do a
there's-
concert.
yeah,
right?
this could be maybe a post.
I mean, I live with it, so I know he can make anything sound good.
I'm sorry about that. It comes and goes, right?
It's great. It's constant percussion all the time.
Now, another thing I was wondering is, because we talk often about the sense of pulse and the beat. And of course, when you're a percussion player or timpani player, is sort of the quintessential instrument. When you play with the orchestra, or even when you play with Rachel, who's a string player, and she has her own valid sense of pulse, do you feel like the two of you have to adjust a little bit? Because sometimes, I have to be honest, also, sometimes I listen to percussion player practice, and they have the doctor beat.
Wow,
Right?
nice Porgy.
Nice, Porgy and Bess.
And sometimes the violins have that very same line.
Right.
And so you put the two together, and we're like, taka, 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 taka. It's not quite the same, right?
Exactly.
So it takes, I was just wondering, is it an adjustment for
Yeah.
you to adjust to other people who are not like in the pocket?
I've learned a lot, absolutely, through Rachel with timing. And
Aw.
when we have rehearsals, there's so many opportunities where I would ask you about something like, was that late? Or how did that sound? Too much, too little? So there's a lot of, little detailing with timing that we all do. And it has to do with many reasons. If we're playing at the other concert hall, or if we're playing here at the Hawaii Theater, there's just different elements to how things fit. And I think I actually remember having a really nice conversation with you when we were playing Beethoven 5. It was really helpful because we had to really ascertain just, is this right or is it wrong? What needs to be fixed? And I remember we had a great, quick conversation, and it really helped. And sometimes when you're all the way back there, what you hear, what you see, it's you can't trust your senses. And I remember we were talking about this earlier today. You have to almost...
Or you can't trust other senses.
Yeah.
No, but referring to the Beethoven Fifth, I think, it's dong, gong, gong, gong. And beginning is fine, but then somewhere in the middle, you have and so there's a slowdown, right? But sometimes you go with whoever plays the loudest, maybe, or the conductor. And so often it's a good wise decision to go with the timpani player.
I like it.
Yes.
Well, that was a great example, though. It can be very hard at times, and sometimes you don't get too many opportunities in those rehearsals to maybe really you're in that concert. And that's what makes live music wonderful, of course. But I think the element of, we talk about this a lot too, is coming from my background as a pianist, just note, and the element of how you have to create your sound, they couldn't be different. And I think that is really where I think the timing kind of starts and ends, if you will. It was just that whole idea there.
Absolutely.
So we have some questions about strings. Sorry.
That's fine.
Nice. Cheers.
But I'm hoping we're going to get the quiz answer here soon. You have, since I'm new here and I wasn't here for this performance, you have Greg and I confused as well.
Good.
So we've had a number of answers that we think might be correct. So this might, before we jump into a question about your favorite repertoire for just strings, which we've been doing a lot of lately due to the circumstances we're facing at the moment. What is the answer to our quiz question?
Is it time?
It's time. It's
Okay.
What was the question again, please?
So the question is, which piece of repertoire has the Hawaii Symphony performed that was just scored for percussion and strings? That is the question.
Drum roll.
The answer is Bernstein's Serenade, and it's for solo violin as well, and it was one of the most, I think, really one of my favorite performances we've ever done here.
With Robert McDuffie.
With Robert McDuffie, and it was...
Who played it with Bernstein, is that correct? Studied it with him?
I believe so.
I thought he talked about
I
that.
think he said that, yeah.
Yeah, I think he wrote this piece right around when he was doing West Side Story. So there's all these, when you're listening to Serenade, it's so easy to kind of go into that world. And I remember when we talked about that in rehearsal, that kind of really firmed it up for me.
So favorite repertoire for strings?
I simply love the Dvorak Serenade for Strings. It's such a classic, but it moves me so much. So I do hope we could play that at some point. I know you just did Tchaikovsky.
I'm sure we'll have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Rachel, you were on stage performing last time, Chaos to Calm.
Yes.
Tell us what it felt like to be off the stage for so many months and then just get back with us and being able to perform with us.
I had a wonderful time. This hall is so lovely. We are so lucky to be in this hall because it's easier to hear. I felt that we could hear each other better, smaller, intimate.
In spite of the distance between people, it was actually the stage made it easy to listen to each other.
Definitely. And I thought I've only played the Shostakovich as a string quartet, so I really enjoyed the differences of playing it within a larger ensemble and how that affected the interpretation and what types of changes we had to make to accommodate just having basses and having a bigger ensemble. And it was great. And obviously, Joe Stepek was wonderful. He was such a great conductor. He organized us so well, and we were able to present a beautiful product that I was really proud of the concert. I thought it went really well.
You mentioned Shostakovich and being a string quartet piece. First of all, I know you're very involved with string quartets, and you actually won a Nahoku Anono Award recently?
Yes. So this amazing thing happened just on Saturday night, and it was a Hawaii Theater broadcast, which is a great tying it all together. And cellist Josh Nakazawa, who's also in the Hawaii Symphony, and myself, and we partnered with two Kamehameha students, and they were the other part of the string quartet, and they're also in the Hawaii Youth Symphony. So shout out to Randy Wong and all those amazing educators that put us together in a string quartet, and we played as part of the music video. We also recorded a separate audio track that they dubbed in, because when you're recording outside, we were outdoors, it's not as ideal for strings, so they got us on an audio track, and the video is so moving. Check it out. You can just YouTube Hawaii 78. It won Best Music Video of the Year at the Nahoku Hano Awards just a couple nights ago.
And of course, education is something that is very dear to you. You coach string quartets and you have tons of students. Tell us about the importance of ensuring the legacy of string playing here.
Absolutely. We were lucky. Iggy and myself are at Punahou Music School at the Chamber Music program, which is a phenomenal program. So lucky those kids to have a program like that where they can play string quartets together. And I also private teach. And I think string playing and all musicians in this community, we know how important it is to keep this going because it's healing. And right now we need that more than anything. We're all struggling through COVID together. So music is one of those things. It doesn't matter if you grow up to become a professional musician. It's just so important that you have this beautiful outlet to express yourself. And also we can talk about diversity. We can talk about these movements happening right now. And the Hawaii Symphony is a great institution to do that. We can move forward. We can program things that are inclusive of, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color. This is something that we are all going to be doing together to educate ourselves, educate our community, and be more inclusive. And
Did you feel a sense of social justice ever since you grew up when you were young, or because I'm a foreigner, or I think of people from Arizona, and, and that's what I think of. But did that evolve as you were traveling around, or in school, or are those issues?
Those are deep-rooted feelings I have. It's a great question. I think that that's one of the reasons I'm a musician, is actually to transcend borders, to transcend these imaginary things that we have. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but we are all one. And how can we make music to inspire that feeling amongst us?
That's right. That's beautifully said. Jordan, actually, on the other side, someone told me, and I don't know if it's true, that those crash cymbal instruments around the time of Mozart, they were somewhat new, and they came from the Ottoman Empire. And they were saying that there's some bass drum and crashing cymbals, and they were actually on the front line of the Ottoman Empire when they were fighting the Austrians. They were intended to scare the enemy because the Austrians never heard those sounds before from scary percussion instrument, and so they were there on the front line to scare them away.
Can you imagine?
Is that so? Maybe they were the first weapons of mass evasion.
No.
I don't know.
Iggy,
Love it.
Is that true, or am I just being full of it?
you only speak the truth. It's perfect.
I'm sorry,
It's
Dave. Can
perfect.
you bail me out?
Yes,
it was literally perfect.
Last week it was Texas. This week it's Arizona. Just one by one, we're going through the states.
48 left.
We have another question that I'm really interested to ask, sitting next to Concertmaster. How connected are you to the Concertmaster during performances, and how independent are you as a violinist in a string section? I think that we've talked about the different roles of the string sections in previous conversations, and could you talk about that a little bit?
Definitely. You may think I'm saying this just because he's here, but I'm not. I am glued to Iggy's bow the entire time I play. I mean it. Because the conductor is looking to the back where Jordan is, and the conductor is often plugged into other sections. So as a violinist, I'm staring at Iggy's bow. I'm making sure that I'm right there with him so that I'm not sticking out at all in any of the entrances or exits. And even during, it's just, it's a great question because I look at Iggy's bow more than the conductor's baton. And in addition, I think there's a peripheral feeling of what's happening within the section. So you definitely are aware of your other 14 or 12 or 10, depending on where you are. You're aware of each other. We're like a breathing organism, so we just try to stay together within that.
It's a little bit like synchronized swimming.
That's what I was just going to say. We actually had some other questions about this, and now that we're in this digital realm, and we're thanks to Donard and our wonderful videographer that brings the audience 2 feet away from all of our performers. You start to see this syncretic nature of the bows that you don't necessarily notice from the audience, and so Iggy just telepathically says to everyone, this is what's going to happen? Or when you get a piece of music, are there notations on it? Let's go to the real, basic element. How do you know what he's going to do ahead of time? And do you practice that?
we're mind readers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely an element of mind reading. There's an element of preparation, but if a conductor comes in and has a different tempo, we have to change because we have to be quick on our feet to not be stuck with what we prepared. I think that music has so much interpretive element to it. So even if it's a classic piece, there's within a Beethoven symphony, there's a wide range of tempi that some conductors will take. So as string players, we are adjusting our bowings just to match that interpretation. A lot of wind players are probably frustrated. Like, what are they doing? Oh, they're doing down up again. But it's to help the overall interpretation.
I did notice that we had great conductors who often say that it's important for musicians to lead from the back. So Rachel sits everywhere because sometimes you're in the front, sometimes you're in the back, in the middle. But although I'm as the concertmaster, I lead the section. It's very important that the back and the middle section feel a sense of ownership and responsibility, and that makes a tremendous difference because I've seen performances where usually the people in the front, they're like moving quite a bit, and sometimes you can only hear the front of the orchestra. You don't hear a blend, but if you see the commitment from the back, then the sound becomes much richer, much warmer, and has a lot more colors. So that is very, very important as well.
We had an astute viewer from this previous week's performance. Were you using an iPad for your music?
Yes, I can't believe they could see that.
Well, we have a very good videographer.
Wow. Oh, good job. Yes, there were some really fast page turns that I guess you can solve as my other colleagues solved them with printing it out a little piece here and there. But I recently acquired the iPad and the foot pedal, which is key. You have to use your foot to change the page. So I loved it. It was my first real professional setting using it because I acquired it in January and then I didn't have any opportunity to use it. I used it for some gigs, but this was a real deal. So I made sure the battery was charged and
Right.
I just, put a new battery in just in case on the foot pedal. It worked out great. So great job, viewer. I'm very impressed.
We're kind of coming to the close of our time together, and I want to transition and ask a question related to music and related to the symphony and kind of forward-looking. Yeah. You guys are both very early in your career, and the industry is going to change, inevitably from what we're experiencing right now with this pandemic. What we're experiencing in the immense societal change, what does the future of classical music or symphonic music, what do the next 10, 20, 30 years look like? And how do we go forward and really, as you said earlier, be reflective of the community that we serve, which is something that I like to talk about a lot.
Well, I would say that we've done some nice programming with different Hawaiian programs. And I think that is absolutely something I personally would love to see that we continue and expand. In terms of, 10 or 20 or 30 years, hey, maybe it could be the best 10 or 20 or 30 years. And I think that's the attitude that we need to maintain. And as a viewer of the concert that you both performed in, I had a really unique experience, wondering how everything would come off. And I was really amazed at the element of just being at home, especially during everything that's going on, and seeing friends and colleagues play a beautiful program. And I immediately thought of when we used to do some inter-island touring, the wonderful communities on the other islands, and what an opportunity for at least the interim to at least strengthen these relationships that we already have. It's not always just so easy for an orchestra to hop over to another island. So I would love to see really establishing some roots even deeper here in Hawaii with the other islands. I'm not sure, Rachel, if you want to expand on any of that or.
I completely agree with that sentiment. Having the relationship to native Hawaiians and listening to their voices and elevating their voices through our music is really important to me, and the HSO has done that already over the years, and it's really special to be part of that. So I know we'll continue in that direction, and I know we'll continue hopefully to have this amazing digital format that we are forced to have, and yet there are silver linings. And
maybe we could find more opportunities for more intimate gatherings, if you will. I know we're forced to, certainly for probably the foreseeable future, to kind of tiptoe around a little bit, but I'd like to see maybe some creative choices for venues. And, you know, as a viewer, I think there could be a lot more excitement with, especially this venue. It's way more intimate, and if you're here live, you can see the orchestra very well. But also, as we were talking about earlier, the ability, if you're watching at home, you can really see up close and personal, which is really exciting. I know a lot of musicians are very fond and privy of the Berlin Digital Concert Hall, which they have been doing for quite some time. And I know when I was a student, I would watch as many as I could. I was so fascinated with the up-close nature of how you could really get a different experience, I guess you could say. And we're going to be forced to do this. We need to have a hybrid approach.
yes.
I like it. I like it. You know, I think one of the things that, I don't know if I've said it here on these programs, but, you know, this access to classical music, the programming choices, both in classical and Hawaiian, and being representative of everything here in our community. You know, but one of the things that I'm concerned about is when we invite people back to the concert hall, how are we going to sell those seats way up there when you're used to, you know, being this close to a musician and hearing that performance from the comfort of your home? I think that as we go down the path of, you know, further technology development of virtual reality and, we've talked here at the theater about, you know, what happens if we can create an audio experience where you're walking through the orchestra and its sounds change with how the orchestra does. And, you know, to me, that's one of the futures that we can build alongside intimate venues and just really create that access that's so important for, you know, the educational side of things as well.
Yeah.
As educators, like you both are, it's our future.
Do you guys remember pop-up video growing up? Iggy, I'm not sure.
On VH1?
Wow.
Bravo.
Yeah, I've thought many times, like, that kind of idea fused with the orchestra with little tidbits that come up that might be interesting as the music comes along. Yeah. That might play into, like, the VR thing you were mentioning.
Yeah.
And the education, learning so much about the moments as they pass.
Exactly.
These are his initials, DE flat.
Yeah.
You know.
So better that than the Mystery Science Theater, if you remember those.
Vaguely.
You know the okay. I won't go there, but it's
Judging
like-
by who's laughing, it might.
Great, I'm thanking Greg for laughing.
It sounds familiar though.
We'll have to get on YouTube after this and check that out.
Hey, just one last question. So you have your life at home, and you're so balanced and mild-mannered with us, but when you have to share the stage as a husband and wife, and when you have to perform together, are there any signs of tension at times?
I don't see how there could or would be. I mean, I think because we are, you know, in very different places on the stage, we would never bother each other. No, at home, that's a different issue. Hardly. But no, I think really, as I was mentioning to you earlier, there's essentially every time I can get, you know, Rachel's opinion about timing and issues like that for balancing. So it's really really beautiful.
He'll listen to you, but does he actually do what you were saying?
He does. He does.
100%, Iggy.
He's good like that. He does it.
Well, we're approaching an hour here, and I have one question that I have to ask here because Iggy, I love your shirt. So can you tell us a little bit about this? And Spencer did match the lights to really bring this out.
So this shirt my wife bought for me maybe about a year ago. She went to the shop in Namba, and I was actually lucky to do a couple shows for her for Anne Nomba. Not modeling, but just playing the violin. It was a modeling show, okay? And I was playing the violin, okay? I wasn't modeling her shirt. But anyway, so throughout the years, I would buy maybe a shirt or two. And this one, my wife bought for me, and she just hit the jackpot because I am actually very picky. But everything was perfect. So thank you, Chris, for getting this shirt from Anne Nomba for me.
Beautiful.
Great taste.
Well, and a few other people for us to thank here tonight. Of course, our sponsors at Kaka'ako Wines for your continued support. Gregory Dunn here at the Hawaii Theater Center, Donard Sonoda of 808 Video Productions, Bob Dickerson, our audio engineer for this evening, Spencer, who makes this theater look so wonderful every time we're in here. We're grateful to all of the support of all of you tuning in for these. Next week, we'll be back, and we have two guests who are not married, but they are both in the orchestra, and they have a history that goes back to 1968.
Oh, I think I can guess who
I know who they are.
There's no quiz. You're not.
There's no
We're
free
not
wine
winning. We're
here,
not winning.
guys. There's no free.
Is it Jim and Norm?
Yeah.
See? You can do
So
it.
2/3 of our clarinet section, we're working to have with us next
Oh, that's
week.
great.
So a lot of history, a lot of fun stories.
Champagne Urbana, too.
You're gonna
Yeah,
need
absolutely.
more than an hour with Jim on here. Are you serious?
Well, Jim tunes in every week, so he knows the
Jim.
format. Hi,
I know
Jim.
he does.
We're looking forward to having you here next week. And the
about the
following
cards.
week, we're going to be welcoming Jeff Bachman, who is conducting our program on October 31st, our Sweet Psycho Suite. Which will be, again, live here from the Hawaii Theater Center, a program of, Albinoni. We'll be using the theater organ here with some of our strings. We're doing a wonderful piece by Carolyn Shaw called Entr'acte, which was written back in 2017 and was actually inspired by a Haydn string quartet, a minuet, one of the movements. We're doing Respighi's Ancient Airs, number 3, which was inspired by 16th century guitar music. And it's Halloween, so we have two perfect pieces for Halloween. Since there's probably no trick-or-treaters, we have the Carnival of Animals, so we'll get some animals out for that. And then we'll close the program with the suite from Psycho. So a nice balanced program.
For the young and old.
The young and the old. Yeah, absolutely. So tickets are available for that, probably in the link you'll get in your inbox here shortly. And join us next week. And thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Iggy.
Thank you.
It's great.
And thank you all for tuning in. We will see you next week. Mahalo.
Cheers.